So about 2 weeks after he ended that relationship, I was already out of my relationship, and he called me and he said, you know, my boyfriend at the time and I are no longer together. And my response, do you remember what I said?
I know you were over the house within less than an hour.
I said I'll be there in 30 minutes. And I was literally parked outside the house in 30 minutes. Not for any other reason than I believed that, you know, I always said to him, you know, I wish I could give you the things that I never had and the things that you never had and vice versa. And so at 20, I was pretty sure about what I wanted and who I was then, and was pretty secure in my skin. And so,
somewhat.
Okay, for the most part. At least I thought so at the time. And so I was here in 30 minutes. One of the biggest barriers, though, at least what I perceived to be a barrier, was my mother, right? My mother met him when I was 16, and I didn't want her to believe that there was anything weird going on behind the scenes. And so she was actually having surgery a few weeks after you called me. And for those of you who know me, I don't do blood, I don't do surgery, death scares me, going under the knife scares me, pain scares me, the whole thing scares me. And so
she dated me who worked in a hospital.
But I'm not there.
Well, I tell you stories.
I don't want to hear it. So my mom is having surgery, and I have a younger sister. She's 25 now, but at that time, obviously much younger. And so I had to be the one to bring my mom to the hospital and be there with her and see them put the IV in.
She had her brothers there, but
oh, no. But
you were the man of the house.
Correct. And I had to see the anyway. So I needed to say I was going through it because my mom was having a pretty major surgery, and so I was losing my mind a bit. And so I called Carlos. Carlos was gracious enough to be there with me through that, and be there for my mom through that as well. And while she was in recovery, obviously he was at the house a lot, checking on her and helping us. And so
I asked her the question,
like the true gentleman he is.
And after she had surgery done, she was
in the recovery room?
Damn right.
Oh my God.
Just in case. Just let you know.
Just in case what? Anyway.
God forbid anything else can happen. At the end of the day, I'm like, listen, the first opportunity I get, I need to pose the question to her and see how she feels.
Will you marry me? That was not the question, honestly.
I know there's an age difference. I just need to know how you feel about it, was the question. And she says, well, my son is happy, then I'm okay. She says, your father and her was the same age difference as our age difference.
You like him older.
So at the end of the day, I got her blessing, which is the most important thing. And we are friends. I think I would call your mom my friend. She's been a true inspiration, as a woman should be.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, with all respect that was due to her, I had to ask that question. So when I asked the question and she told me, it's okay, I strive every day trying to live up to my expectation so that between her and my mother will be proud of my accomplishments. And whether it's being a dad, whether it's being a husband, whether it's being a son, I strive to be that every day. So given the green light to go, we decided to start dating.
October 4th, 2006.
And there was most good times. There were some difficult times with him being 20 and, you know what they say, young, dumb, and full of confidence.
Is that what they say? Okay, well.
And at the end of the day, I knew his full potential even when he couldn't see it.
Mm-hmm.
And I strive to keep him, and I'm using this word loosely.
Grounded.
No.
Not in check, grounded.
Keep you in line. Because
no.
Being young and being around individuals who are not seen your potential, other than it's
or who
from
have my
fun
best
time.
interest.
Yeah.
Right.
For me, I think your parent, your mom and your uncles and everyone else that plant that seed into you, that was already grounded. You just needed a friend, a true friend that would actually keep you in line to say, hey, that's not you, don't do that. Or if I saw someone who was trying to take advantage, just say, hey, no. True love doesn't come with a price. You love because you love, not because someone is borrowing something or someone is giving you a gift. No.
Yeah.
So with that, I think for the first couple of years we dated, we never thought about marriage. I think all along you had it in your mind.
I always knew I wanted to be married. I think a lot of you can probably relate. You have this aspirational goal of being married.
A lot of you mean in the 30-something generation. Rewind.
No.
I'm telling you.
No. Well, are you saying
remember?
Hold on. Are you saying people in their 40s don't want to get married?
They didn't because that wasn't a.
Oh, but you're talking about same-sex marriage.
Yes.
Oh, I'm just referring to marriage as a whole.
Yeah, but you weren't interested in women, so.
Well, no, I'm just talking about. Listen, none of my followers are gay men.
It's not about that. It's about your truth. Your truth is
right. Well, yes, I always knew I would like to be married, obviously, to a man.
Yeah, but
when Carlos,
it wasn't kosher.
Well, right at that point, it wasn't even legal.
Yes.
Right. I think you, admittedly, did not see that being a possibility for yourself.
I've always said if the person, listen, whether he, she, or the old lady, if they deserve.
Lady. I'm just not geriatric though. Sorry.
That's the phrase.
Okay.
He, she, or the old lady. If they deserve that ring, then no matter what the world say, I would put a ring on. And
well, let's just say in the very beginning, I saw marriage before he did, as a general concept. You obviously had more experience than I did with relationships and finding out who you were and what you accepted and liked, didn't like. I was finding that out, and I think one of the challenges that we had, being 20 at the time and the 15-year age gap, I think as you get older, the age gap kind of closes a bit. But when you were 20 and 35, your life experience is just very different. So whereas I'm still growing and finding myself and figuring out what I want, don't want, like, and don't like, you had already lived a life where you had done things the way you wanted to do them, and you figured out what you liked and didn't like.
Yes and no, because from when I was 21, I knew that I wanted a straightforward, committed relationship.
Right.
Whether it was with a man or a woman. The bottom line was, marriage wasn't necessarily a thought process, but if it came up and it was a good relationship, then I would have gone with it.
Mm-hmm.
Choosing to embrace myself fully, being gay, it wasn't also the easiest.
You didn't come out
me.
to your mom until you were 35.
No, I came out to my mom after I broke up with.
You were 35.
Yes.
And so I was in 4th grade. I was 10, and I told my mom I was gay. And again, keep in mind, obviously he has an accent. We're both Jamaican, so again, I'm sure the comments below are going to read abomination. We will have a whole another video on the type of backlash that we often receive from A, being gay, but B, being two black gay Jamaican men. We will do a whole video on that coming soon. But either way, your coming out and your reality of having your parents or your family know about your lifestyle was different than mine. But so I think our growing was different. I grew up in a pretty progressive household. Not that everyone accepted it, but it wasn't that I was pushed to the margins of my family, right? Whereas
because your mom was the lion.
Well, she is kind of the
lion
one that makes the whole thing run.
Yeah, she's
and
the lion. So
they dare not. But it doesn't mean that people.
And for those who are watching who are related, it doesn't mean that she is. I think when I say she's the lion, she will do anything to protect her offspring.
Eldest girl.
But most
generally,
again, being men and being Jamaican, you would think, who is she? But again,
right.
She, when I say is a strong woman, she would protect her kids with her life.
And she's like this high.
Yeah, she's about
5'3", 5'4".
4+.
Oh, stop.
Love you, Mom.
Anyway, the point is that I think when there is a 15-year age difference and you're entering a relationship at 20 and 35, your reality is going to be slightly different. And
most people warn me about that.
Right, and like I think that was
20,
a concern. I think that was a concern that our camps, for lack of a better term, shared. Right. So in Carlos's end, you're gonna date someone who's 20 years old and doesn't know their ass from their elbow, versus
those who knew you because I introduced you to. I don't run with a big circle. Again, I just need a few lion. I don't need no sheep. So at the end of the day, the few people that I did introduce you to, who was close to me and who have sown into my life, both prayer-wise as well as advice and encouragement, they saw what I saw. They saw your full potential,
Right.
and they saw the capability, if guided right, whether by them or positive individuals around us, we would live our best life.
Right. And I think on my end, people were like, well, on what planet does a 35-year-old see it necessary or even realistic to be with someone who was 20 and for anything other than sex? And for us, that wasn't the foundation of our relationship. It wasn't about sex. It was about the feelings that we have with one another. Now, sex is great, and that's fine. But stop. But that wasn't.
I'll make another video.
Okay, we're not making any videos about sex, or starring us in any of it. Anyway, but I think the concern on both ends were concerns that either we both shared equally, or that one had versus the other, or had different times of our relationship. But I think in the 15-year age gap, there were certainly problems that came across pretty quickly. And I think you can categorize them as either being jealousy or selfish or misguided. Like, you can name it, we've done it. And that's what we said earlier around not wanting to be relationship goals, because I think when you present the final product to people, it seems like a dream. And don't get me wrong, we live a very good life, but the road to get to this place was not rainbows and sunshine.
Which is why I tend to have some conversation at times with some of the guys who comes around us, because they come to praise. Some do praise, some do say they admire, and again, most of it is genuine.
Mm-hmm.
I have to remind them, like, you didn't walk a mile in my shoes. So if I can save you the pain, whether it's self-inflicted or whether it's going to come from someone who you love and trust, that will just one day out of nowhere pick up and walk away. Let me just give you a heads up. What we have accomplished so far is based on the foundation of prayer, the foundation of being truthful to oneself as well as to each other. Because if you can't be honest with yourself, you can't be honest with each other.
So part of our honesty is, look, people ask, well, how did you make this work? What was the highest point of your relationship? What was the lowest point? I think for us, our lowest point, there was an incident of being unfaithful. And so when people ask us, well, how you made this work, you have to fight for this. This is not something that just came easily for both of us. So I moved out 3 years into our relationship, and so I didn't have the experience of living on my own and all of that stuff. When we broke up, I ended up moving out, and I think that was a pretty painful time, I think, for both of us. I kind of drowned my own sorrows and all that kind of stuff, started dating again, which I think was, I know it was a mistake. Because I hadn't dealt with the pain that I was feeling about our breakup. Don't laugh. But to fast forward into that, one of the true statements of our love was, even in the pain and the hurt, I think it's one of the things that I think I can appreciate about us, even through the hurt and the ups and the downs and the bad times and the good times, I think one of the things that remain true about us is that at the end, what did we want to have happen? And what we wanted to have happen was us. Right now, you had to do a lot of fighting even when I couldn't see it. Let me show you how crazy this man can get. So I remember it was like 2 o'clock in the morning or something like that, 2, 3 in the morning. I don't remember how, it was early. And I was living in Harlem, and we are currently in Brooklyn in the house that we lived in before I moved out. And that is about a 45 minute to an hour, depending on the day and the time of day, train ride to get to where I was living. I had a doorman at the time. I don't think the doorman was even at the door at that time, because usually I would get a call to say, hey, you have a guest. This is who it is. Are you expecting us to know? I got no such call. All I heard was a bang at my door. And at 3 or 4 in the morning, it was him. And he felt compelled to come, and he says that if my boyfriend at the time had been there, he would have offered to buy both of us breakfast and all that kind of stuff. But I think that move and that statement, as I view it, of love, I think was one of the things that I had to consider when deciding what we were going to do moving forward. So what ended up happening was the guy and I at that time broke up, and we had to have a very serious discussion to work through it, because it wasn't like we break up and issues go away, right? You have to start working on the issues, and you have to decide to work on the issues. Because I think for a long time I wanted to sweep them under the rug. I didn't want to work on them. I wanted to say, let's just move forward. Why are you still harping on all the things that happened in the past? But I think as you mature and you grow up, you realize you can't have some more tips. As you grow up, you have to recognize that you can't just plow through your issues. You got to deal with them. And dealing with them requires a lot of mess, and sometimes can be very repetitive, because when you think you've discussed it, the other person has other questions that come out of left field because they have lived it or are living it differently than how you're living it. And so, say all that to say, in that space, are you done making faces at me? Cheers. In that space, we decided to work on our relationship and to get back together, taking it a day at a time. No?
He's trying to polish it up.
Okay, you want to tell the story?
At the end of the day, I decided to, listen and go. And when I went there, he was still in the ego, half asleep and all. And I had to let him know, listen, you're not that special if you think that you're the only person, that I could date. So I threatened to go back to one of my ex. And at the time, he was very... I think he then wake up and go, hell no.
Because again, I have no issues with his ex-boyfriend. I've never had a conversation with him. I've seen him, but my issue has never been with him. And so I think for me, what the issue was the finality of it. So if we decide in this moment, because you're hot and I'm hot, to walk away, it was going to be forever, and I wasn't prepared for it to be forever. And so I had to humble myself enough to be like, you know what? Well, there's one part of you to be in your feelings and irrational and think with your ego, as you put it. And there's other part of you to be like, well, despite how uncomfortable this is, what is it that you want in the end? And I think the lessons I took from that is, and I think hopefully others who have been in our situation or who might find themselves in our situation, at a certain point, you have to decide to yourself what's most important. Is it the easily accessible person because they give us the time and attention and we feel like we're the most valuable person alive? Or is it that you go and deal with your house, even if it's not in order at the time, and put an effort in the work to make it work? And so I think from us, we decided to do the latter. We decided to put in the work to make it work, knowing that it wasn't going to be easy, and it was not easy. When we decided to get back together, there was still a lot of emotional trauma, I would say. And so we had to work through a lot of issues, and communication had to be the first thing that we started with, because I think I was reluctant to share certain things. He wasn't minding the way he was sharing certain things, which would then trigger me, which would then trigger an argument. It would be this whole back and forth tit for tat thing. And anytime we get into tit for tat, it's never productive. Because he's strong-willed and bullheaded is what people call you.
No.
And I have, well, people call you that. And I have
Behind my back?
and I have, I have it in me to be the same. And so we both had to go in our corners at times and regroup and figure out, as I had to, regroup, figure out what was what, come back and have a productive and rational conversation. So anyway, fast forward a little bit of that. That was around like March, April.
We just had to figure out how to
Yeah.
communicate better.
Yeah, I think once we figured that out, it made it easier
Also,
for us
he was getting sick.
to, yeah. Anxiety is a bitch.
Anxiety.
Anxiety is a bitch.
So I had to bring him that message. When I went into that morning, I had to bring him the message. Like, until you're honest with yourself and those who is around you, who care about you, you will always suffer from that.
Mhm.
And how
I
many
mean,
years now?
I'm talking about like panic attacks and this and that, and
How many
you
years
know,
you haven't had one?
oh, it's been a while.
Since you took my message, or should I say took God's message?
It's been a few years.
Mhm.
But we had to decide. My lease was ending, that October. And so were we going to start a new page in a new apartment and give up the house we live in now, which didn't make sense because his mother owns the house and our rent is more than reasonable and we have a bunch of space, and so why would we do that? And so I decided to move back in. But before I moved back in, we had to update the place. That's just more of a
No.
vanity
Hold on, stop it. When the relationship ended, I already had visions of changing the place
I
around.
came back to get some of my shit, and this man is painting the bedroom and frankincense and myrrh as if I was the devil.
Lucifer had to go.
But we had to cleanse space for those of you who believe in that. But ultimately, when we moved back in together that October, one of the questions I asked you was like, so what is the next step? What's the next chapter in our relationship? And I think marriage was what popped into both of our heads. And it was not this down on one knee.
He blackmailed me.
And that's not blackmail you. Stop it. It was not this down on one knee romantic gesture. It was actually very transactional. So when we getting married, I don't know. Next year, great. I'll start planning. That was literally the engagement. There were no frills. And I think at that time we were together for, or in total, seven going on 8 years at the time. And so that's how we got engaged. It was we're sitting down and we're talking. I'm like, so what's next? And marriage was on both of our hearts, and we decided to, well, let's do it. So planning, and that was how we got engaged. No ring, none of that. I think when you've been together long as we've been together, those items don't actually mean as much.
But who created those traditional?
Well, we're not even going to go there.
Well, but yeah, we need to go there.
Oh, we're not gonna go there
because
yet.
most of us go
We're not
broke.
going there.
Hello, most of us go broke trying to keep up with the Joneses or trying to do traditional.
Don't get me wrong. We have carrots, right? But that was not the
Carrots that we can afford.
right. So it might not be Beyonce clear, but it's clear enough.
That's all right.
It's clear enough.
But guess what? With all that ring Beyonce had, Jay-Z still cheated.
Yeah.
So the diamond and the size of the diamond don't mean anything. It's the heart that matters.
So that's how we met, and that's how we broke up and got back together. And now we are gonna be celebrating our third wedding anniversary in less than a month, and we're going to be celebrating our 12th year together, October 4th of this year. So it's been a journey, and marriage is not perfect, and parenthood is not perfect, and relationships in general are not perfect, but our message, if you had to give one, would be what?
To thine own self be true. Love without boundaries. Give of yourself first to yourself,
That's important.
and then you
Self-care,
can be
self-love.
able to give to your partner.
And for me, it would be work through your shit. As uncomfortable and as annoying and as emotional as it might get, if you actually believe the person that you're sitting next to is who you're meant to be with, then you got to fight for it. And no one can fight for you. I think oftentimes we want to be sought after and chased after. It takes both parties putting in the work. But I think ultimately what we hope to become is not so much an example, because we never want to be that. What we want to be is just a reflection of what is possible if that's what you want. And I think that is ultimately our charge. And so what we said in the beginning of this video around people saying that we're quote unquote goals. We're not actually interested in being anyone's goals. All we want to do is show that when you love someone, anything is possible. How you define that possibility is up to you. But it does take a level of time and work and commitment. And patience.
And soul searching.
And wine. Because it gets ugly. And I think any married couple or couple who chooses not to be married but has been together for a while will tell you the shit takes work. And sometimes you don't like the person that you lay next to. And that's okay.
So you don't like me sometimes?
I mean, sometimes you're an asshole. But
I'm a perfect asshole.
I think that's... Anyway,
most folks,
we're not going to go there.
Most folks would want this asshole.
Okay. Love you. Mean it.
I don't give a fuck.
Come here. Come here. Come here.
Call me an asshole.
Come here.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. Hold on. Come here. No. He loves me.
Blood of Jesus.
Hallelujah. Cheers.